Welcome to Allies or Enemies. This time we are previewing Arborea, which comes to Kickstarter early 2023. But note, this is not a paid preview, so these thoughts are all our own. Arborea is a 1 to 5 player game about building an ecosystem. Designed by Dani Garcia, Arborea puts players into the ephemeral shoes of forest spirits who are trying to rebuild their land after a catastrophe and attract fantastical creatures to their newly lush forests and lakes. It is important to note that this is just a preview, as the version we've been playing is not the final version. So we haven't seen all the bells and whistles, and things may change by the time it goes into full production. But hopefully, we can still provide an objective view at what we have played so far. Let's start with how it plays.
Each turn in Arborea is broken into 4 key steps. First, you will either place one of your villagers on one of the pilgrimage tracks, or you will move one of the tracks one step forward. You can do this twice if you spend 3 spirit, which is a resource that you'll spend over the course of the game, but you want to get topped up by game end so you don't lose points. Key things to remember here are, if villagers stand on these season symbols, you can move your scoring marker down the appropriate track. And if you move any of the tracks that your villagers are on, you can put them at the start of a trail that they are adjacent to. This is actually an option anytime a villager moves on a track for any reason. Second, you can move up to 2 of your villagers that are at the start of a trail down that trail, taking all of the actions that you pass along the way. These might include attracting creatures to make them available, gaining creatures to your board, getting ecosystem cards, gaining biome resources you need to make those cards, moving up your spirit, readying villagers, and choosing rewards from the sages. Third, you can spend biome resources to build ecosystem cards, which give you extra rewards when you build them. And finally, you can gain points for any resources you created but didn't use this turn, as well as moving any tracks your villagers are still on. And then turn moves to the next player while you add your new ecosystem cards and place any creatures you gained. The game's timer is the sun, which moves up each time a new creature is attracted, and the game ends once that sun reaches the end of its track. Then players count up points from the 4 seasons tracks, along with all creatures they gained along the way, and the greatest forest spirit is named.
So that is kind of how you play, but how does it feel? Well, it's pretty thinky. When you play a villager, you need to think about what bonus you will get, how fast will it move, and where you might get off the track. And then you're trying to time when you gain what resources or creatures or cards, because all of the biome resources are in a shared market, so other players can just steal your hard work if you don't use it fast enough. But you need the ecosystems to house your creatures, and you need your creatures to get points, all while also trying to fulfill the goals on the season track, which is where you'll get a huge bulk of your points. Even when you are attracting creatures, you need to think about how fast you are moving the timer and what bonus you will gain from playing that kind of creature. And you'll always need to keep an eye on the spirit track and making sure you have enough villagers. It is a brain burner and it can be frustrating at times, but it is oh so satisfying once you get the flow right and you're able to align everything just right.
This one is a bit tricky because, as we mentioned, this is an early version of the game. But even though a few things will change a little bit, this gives a pretty good idea of where things are headed. Starting with the art, forest spirits are something of a trend in games at the moment, with games like Botoku and the various Kodama games, but it's not something that we're tired of yet, and this is certainly a pretty addition to the genre. A couple of obvious highlights are the villagers, which all have individual looks for each player color, and the creatures, which are brimming with personality. We should note here that we were told that these will be smaller in the final version so that they actually fit on their track a little bit better. There are a few fiddly bits, however. We found the biomes were easy to knock and a bit weird to move around, and we found it all but impossible to remember to move the sun when we added creatures. Despite all of the helpful icons, there's just something about that doesn't quite connect with the system. We also had a bit of trouble with some of the iconography, but generally, we found it surprisingly easy for such a busy board. Also reminiscent of Batoku, there is a bit of trickiness with the terminology for everything in the rules. But even taking those points into account overall, we do expect that once everything has been finalized, this will be a very pretty production.
Again, these aren't really final thoughts, as we haven't had a chance to try the solo mode or see how it all works at higher player counts. And we've only had a chance to play with a few of the endgame goals, so it will be interesting to see how that affects replayability down the line. But we were impressed by the pilgrimage track / trail system and the way that bundles up a whole bunch of small actions into what feels like a cool combo of stuff. And we like the ecosystem puzzle with the cards and the creatures. Also, there are a few interesting points of interaction with the shared biome market and the shared pilgrimage tracks that kind of force opponents to move you along with them. On the flip side, the season goals felt maybe a bit too powerful, especially if you can ramp them all the way up, and turns can certainly get a bit AP-inducing, as there are a lot of things to keep in your head at once. Arborea might be cute on the outside, but this is very much a game for people that have some experience with heavier games. But overall, this is an interesting, original, and very thinky puzzle that we will have our eye on.
And that is it. Have you looked at Arborea? What are your thoughts and expectations? And what are some of your other favorite foresty games? Let us know in the comments, and please like and subscribe. And hopefully we will see you all next time for another game.